Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Alternatives Podcast. Today will be a podcast that I think virtually everybody could benefit from. The title is How to Be Intentional with Your Time. And I think maybe by the end of this, we might realize how unintentional we are with our time and maybe get some good tidbits as to how to be a little bit more intentional with our time. Today, our guest is Melissa Winter, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself. I'm excited to hear what she has to say. So, Melissa, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and all that.
Well, thank you for having me on. What an honor to be asked to be on here. And so I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a caregiver, and I'm a former classroom teacher, but now I'm turned into a homeschool educator. And I've been a business coach for the last 18 years, which I think is kind of how I got invited here today. But what is really funny is the topic that you have invited me to discuss is something I am not at all naturally wired for. It is definitely something I have learned. So when Hannah asked me on, it's kind of like, why do you want me to talk about this? And who am I talking? And so anyways, if I can help some people with some things that I've learned along the way, I am happy to be here to help.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so Melissa, what is the value in time management?
Well, that's such a huge question. There is so much. There is everything from getting a job, keeping a job, getting repeat business. That's kind of some of the things that I might talk to some of my clients about. And I've seen that even in some of my younger family friends and family members. And so I thought I'd kind of give a couple of examples of some things that I've seen lately that kind of exemplified the value in time management as I've seen them. I've seen, younger, maybe, 18, 20-year-old friends and family members that were applying for a job or applying for a scholarship, things like that maybe they waited too long and they missed that opportunity for that scholarship. Or, it's just a reminder that when you're applying for a job, HR, they might say that, post a date 3 weeks from today, but they're not necessarily waiting for you to get your application in, and they've already started the interview process. And so I've seen family and friends that have missed out on jobs because they thought, oh, well, it said that the applications are being accepted until July 15th, and here it is, July 15th, and I'm getting mine in. Well, guess what? They already filled the job. So it's important to learn about time management, even from like getting a job, that aspect of thing. And then in business, one of the things that we saw in this COVID time is my sweet husband, over the course of the past 6 months, he's had 2 occasions where he has treated me with kind of like a catered, like delivered meal. And both times, I have to say, it was like, the food was excellent. The presentation was just so beautiful. And they made little, flowers out of the grapes or whatever, like everything was just gorgeous. And they, all this stuff. And guess what? We would not hire either caterer back. And you know why? Both caterers, each time they were an hour and a half late delivering the food. Oh. And I can have grace, and I didn't yell at anybody, and I'm not going to throw out the name of the caterer or anything like that. But you have to understand that if you're a business person and you're late, how that affects other people. So like, for example, Mother's Day, what was supposed to be a Mother's Day breakfast kind of ended up being Mother's Day brunch. And then the plans with my mom in the afternoon kind of all got backed up, all because, somebody wasn't on time and somebody overpromised and underdelivered on their service. So it's important for time management because you might just think, oh, I'm running a little bit late, but you kind of forget as a service provider, there's people on the other end waiting for that service. And just a flip side of that, I'll give you an example, is when my son was a baby, I can remember, granted, it's Southern California. When the heater goes out, it's not like a life and death situation, but still I was a brand new mommy and our heater went out. And, I was like, I need the heater repairman to get here tonight, to fix our heater. And so I asked a friend for a recommendation, and I got a heater repairman, and the heater repairman, and it was the season, he was busy, and he said to me on the phone, I can't get to you for about a week, but I'm going to recommend somebody who might be able to get you, and they're also great and they'll give you good service. So that salesperson actually lost a sale, but he maintained his reputation in the process because he was willing to disappoint me on the phone versus letting me down by showing up late. And so the value of time management is, if you're a self-employed person, if you depend on sales, it can be so important for you to get that repeat business, to have clients refer you to other people. And then, you know, as somebody coming from a Christian standpoint, it's just important for us to show up as Christians and model, you know, how we should show up in the workplace. I wouldn't want my reputation to be the person that's always late, or the person that's going to ruin your Mother's Day lunch, or, you know, whatever like that. Like, we should be showing up at our best and, you know, showing up in a way that glorifies God, whatever we're doing, wholeheartedly in the way that we show up. So those are a few ways that time management can be important.
Yeah.
It seems like all those that you just described, the value in the time management is exactly our word and our honesty. Over promising, I would just say promising and delivering, like the heating and air conditioner or the heating guy did, even though he wasn't the one, but he promised you something and delivered. His word was his word. The other part that what you said, which I found interesting, the idea is that I have until July 15th to get something in. What has switched in our culture that we now can wait till July 15th? Like, if I found out something today that I needed to get done by next week, I'm planning so that, because guess what? Something might happen that you're not going to have time to fit this in, but to get this done. So it's more on the forefront than on the back end of things. It just seems like that's something with time management, to put that value as to when you're intentionally going to get this application done, whether you're, you know, this food, I have to deliver it by 10 a.m. in the morning. Well, starting it at 9:30 isn't going to cut it, you know? So it just seems like our whole value of time is warped.
And the thing that working with small business owners, and, you know, you run a group there. How many people are you in charge of, Tammy?
8 now.
Yeah. But what I see with people who run organizations is they're always looking for who might be their next hire anytime they're out in public. And so it could be the way that the person is bagging groceries. It could be the way the cart person is hustling on those carts. And, you know, it could be the person that shows up on time with the catered meal versus an hour and a half late.
Right.
And so, you know, wow, there's a lot of talent there, but I can't depend on this person to show up on time. You know, and who knew that, you know, the person receiving that meal that day owned a business, you know, or HR director or whatever that might be. Is if you're a you know, younger person, that it's important to know there are always employers out there looking for good talent.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of people see it like when they drive through, there's a certain you know, fast food place that many of us are familiar with. And, you know, why do we get great service at Chick-fil-A? Because they look for people. They don't try to train them to have good service. They hire people that show up that way. That's their model. It's like they're always out looking for who are the people with that just go get it type of get it done attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think too, especially in Southern California, when everything's so fast-paced, the hustle and bustle, time is worth so much. And so I loved what you said earlier, that as a believer, how we spend our time, but also how we honor others people's time, I think can really demonstrate like how we love them, how we care for them. But as we've been talking about this, we've been talking about, you know, these big things. So getting a job, making a sale, building a company, all of these things. And these are big things. How can somebody decide in their life what's a priority, what's not a priority, what needs to be on the top of their list, what doesn't need to be there?
Great question. You know, I think one thing that successful people do is they take a lot of time to think. They journal, they take time maybe in the morning. They take time to sit and stare out the window and let their brain kind of unwind.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know somebody that does that all the time.
And in that process, and guess what else that they do? They put their phone away. They put their phone away because every time that little ping comes up, oh, squirrel, and they're gone. And there goes that flow of thought is totally gone. And so one of the ways you have to start with figuring out what your priorities are is get yourself in a quiet place. That may not be for everybody, but I would say a lot of people, they're going to work best if they're in a quiet place. Some people know. It might be actively, like you might need to go for a walk and be moving and get your body moving while you're thinking. And other people just, like to sit on the couch and, ponder that way. But really starting to think about, what do I value? What are my values? What's, people always talk about, like, what is my why? What gets me going in the morning? What gets me out of bed? And some people have a really hard time answering these questions, just for whatever reason, they've never thought of it before, or just like, I'm stuck, or I'm not in a place I want to be in my life. And so I don't know what my why is, or my why doesn't seem to be coming to fruition. For some people, it's, well, what is my who? Who am I doing this for? Or what is my what? What am I doing this for? And so there's different ways you can go about it. What do I get really passionate about? Or even on the flip side of that, what makes me really upset? What is an issue that I just get really passionate about? And like, those might all be clues to what your priorities are for you. And so not living out somebody else's dream or somebody else's what they think that you should be doing with your life, but like, what are my priorities? And once I've started to really hone in on that, then everything that comes up as a possibility for my schedule, does that align with my values? And so there can be I can get requests for a lot of really good things, but is it a God thing? Is it what God wants for me in my life? Because I could pick, day after day after day. I love to learn. I would love to take just unlimited classes all the time, and it probably wouldn't do me, like, I love it. And I get my fix with podcasts, and okay, I can learn at any time. I can go walking. I can do this. I can be learning in my car, whatever. But I need to always kind of be honing in on, okay, am I doing something practical with this information? And, or if we just add one more thing to our family list, like, oh, club soccer, let's go, oh, it's time for violin, let's go. Oh, my kid should be doing scouts, let's go. And, before you know it, you can be out every night of the week with driving kids in all different directions. And yet, oh, I said I valued family time. All these things aren't getting us closer as a family. They're actually, and I think that's one thing that the lockdown has helped with a lot of people, is everything got canceled. And we all had way too much time with one another. But I think I'll be curious, as we, move back into life at some point, maybe we don't stack everything on our plates like we used to do. Maybe we are a little more intentional with what we choose to put into our family schedule.
Yeah. No,
So,
those are all really, really great points. And as somebody is doing this and they've figured out, their whys, their whos, their whatnots, they're being really intentional. But then they feel like there's so many things on their schedule. What can someone do if they feel like they have too many priorities?
Well, there's a couple things. A lot of people talk about ABC or priorities. So just, putting down if I could do all the things, what would be all the things I'd like to do? Okay, like, well, let's rank those a little bit. What's kind of at the bottom of the list? What really, or is there a pattern here of things that keep coming up and keep coming up and keep coming up? And maybe I don't need to do 5 things like that, but maybe, okay, that's starting to show me that I'm really passionate about this, service or ministry or whatever it might be. And so, starting to kind of prioritize ABC, what I want to put where, is one thing. One thing that I do is I will, and this kind of goes to your next question. I know you're thinking ahead of what you're going to ask me, but like, I'll take a blank calendar template, and this is what, just mine looks like for those that are watching on YouTube. And I'll just, I'll write out like, what are all the things, if I could do all the things, okay, I'd like to, walk with this girlfriend in the morning, or I'd like to go out on date nights with my husband this many nights a week, or I'd like to, have my child in a, sport or a dance, or, whatever your kid might be into, having them do that, church groups, junior high groups, Sunday school groups, all these things are good things. And if I could do it all, where would it all fit in? So I start with a blank calendar template, and I just kind of, try to put it in, what would be those things that go in first? And, oh yeah, I have a job. Okay, I need to put that in as well, right? And it never works out perfectly, like the schedule, but it at least kind of gives me the focus of, what are the things that come up time and time again. The other thing is, when it comes to kind of project by project, I just heard a name to this concept, but I think we've all experienced, it's called Parkinson's Law. And it's this concept, like if you ever had a, science fair when you were a little kid, and, your teacher gave you 3 months, and, okay, I've got 3 months till the science fair. You start it like in 2 months and 3 weeks from now, right? And you got like, oh, I get it done in that last week. Or if your teacher said, okay, it's due in 3 weeks. Oh, okay, I start it in, 2 weeks, and I've got that last week. So no matter what amount of time we have, we kind of seem to cram it all in to whatever time we, is in front of us. So whether we give our projects 3 months or 3 weeks, we kind of use that amount of time. And so sometimes it could also be that we need to take a look at our schedule and actually back the deadline up, or, just give yourself an actual deadline. So often it's just kind of like, oh, I'd like to just do this thing, but we don't actually give it a deadline. So give yourself a deadline. And in some ways, you may actually shorten the deadline, give yourself less time. A lot of self-employed people know this, like when they are getting ready to leave for vacation, they get all these things done because I'm going on vacation and I'm not taking this project with me. So there's kind of this flurry of activity, and they kind of always go like, how did I get so much done, the day before I left for vacation?
When you talked about the calendar there, and it's like, I looked at it as a blank slate, and kind of putting the big things in first, like work, we got to do that. And just different things that the must do's. And then with the question of what should someone consider before saying yes to something, do you ever give yourself I'm going to allow myself one night out a week for a Bible study, a book club, whatever, at a time, so that there is family time for you and your husband, so that there is church time, whatever it is. So putting that priority, I'm going to do this, like I know my husband will be like, I'm going to do this, and I'll say I'm going to do that. But then we have our other nights where we're together. So do you have a number? I know there's no magic bullet if you do 2.3, and is there something that you do with that, or certain seasons? Okay, for the month of June, I'm going to just chill and not do anything because I know July is going to be crazy or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Again, like for me, I would love to be in all the studies, right? Like, oh, the church is doing this study, that looks great. Oh, my girlfriends are doing this study, that looks great. And for years I have said, BSF, this Bible Study Fellowship, like every season, it comes around September, and I'm like, is this the season? One of these years, I'm going to join it. And I thought, oh, maybe this year, because it's, they're doing it from home, and now this might be the year it finally fits. And every year I just look and I go, I've already got a study, and I would love to do that study. This isn't the season just yet. So you're right. The word season, that's a huge thing that I have to always keep in mind as a mom, as, a wife, that, I am a take more things off the plate kind of a person. I would rather have fewer things. I mean, I would love to do all the things, but I just, I enjoy being home. And I have girlfriends that are just always go, 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 go. Their kids, and they love that. They're so momentum driven, and that's just who they are. So I don't think there's a magic number, because I think part of it is, your family, your fit, your personality, your number of family members, that's a huge thing. But yeah, if we start going over 2 to 3 nights out a week on things, that for us is like a little seasick, like, oh, we're going a little too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, usually, like maybe a church activity for our son. I've got a Bible study with girls that I do every other week. And, then there might be one or two of them. But yeah, because there's the regularly scheduled things, and then there's just the occasional things that pop up. So yeah.
Well, and I think that's probably part of the intentionality of it. I liked what you said. For you, less could actually be better, even though you got tons of energy and would like to learn. But the priority is, I can do a lot of things, but I might not do anything well, but to be intentional with a smaller amount of things.
I was driving the other day, and I was thinking about this podcast, and I was like, okay, Lord, give me an analogy here. Like, what would be an analogy for this? And so I happened to be like merging from, Woodland Parkway onto the 78 freeway. And they have recently extended the lane there. And so now it's like really like, oh, I can finally get on the freeway here. But it used to be one of those like really tight, like you had, just a little tiny amount of space to merge onto the freeway. And every time you would have to get on the freeway, it was like, oh my gosh, white knuckling it. And here we go, trying to, if you're in a 4-cylinder car, you're trying to get your car up and, going fast enough before you can merge over. And nobody's ever, Southern California. So, people aren't always nice on the freeway. And so the tension of like not enough room on the runway here, like every single time. And now there's a whole lane here, and we can just merge on at our will. It's just like, there's space here. And that's what space feels like in your schedule, is that extra lane of the freeway to get to merge on.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. What should somebody think about, or what are some good things to think about as someone's building their schedule, especially with this idea of like having that lane, not having like no margin at all, but having that lane there? What can some people think about as they're building their schedule?
Yeah, well, one of the things that my husband and I also take part in at our church is the Financial Peace University. That's the Dave Ramsey course. And I think there's such a like tie-in of money and time, because so often they're going to affect one another. And so you use the term margin. Andy Stanley talks about that all the time, of just having margin in your life. And honestly, the tie-in with money of like financial decisions we have made, of again, we try to live below it, like, okay, we could spend this much on a house, but I'd rather come in a little bit low and have a little more margin for our life. And, when it comes to, okay, we made that decision before we had a child, but then now all of a sudden, when you have kids, do I have to go back to work, or do I want to go back to work, or do I have to go back to work full time, 80 hours, or, hey, I've got the freedom to have a little more margin here. I'd still like to work, but I can do that part time. And so I think it's, financially living below our means, time-wise, living below our means. Both of those have been exercises that have just allowed us to make decisions. Like one of the examples that they give in Financial Peace was, I think it was a couple that, they went to a Christian school, they wanted to be missionaries, and then they came out with, let's just say $100,000 of student loan debt. And they're like, oh, we can't go on the mission field. We have all this student loan debt and we can't pay that off. And so like now, like we can't do God's work because of the financial piece, like, oh, what if we had kind of rethought that and done that in a different order? So I never want either my time being so compacted with my schedule to prevent me from that opportunity, like being here today, like, hey, guess what? It's my day off. Yeah, I can do Monday. I can do this recording and let's do it, and having that space in my schedule to say yes to something. And it wasn't always like that. Like I said at the beginning, like this is a learned thing for me. And I can remember just a couple of years ago, one of my girlfriends asking me to coffee. And I looked at her like she had two heads. Like, where in the world would I find time in my schedule to go to coffee with a friend? Like, are you crazy? I was like, what? How would that even happen? Because I was just so compressed. And part of that's just, the nature of mom, wife, caregiver, having a job, just a lot of things going on. But just slowly and slowly, keep stripping away the calendar, and also financially putting myself in a position where, you have those choices.
I loved what you said about, I've heard financially living below your means, but even time management, living below. I think the listeners might get this, the calendar that you just pulled out. If someone asks you to do something and you pull out your calendar and the period of time that they asked you to do something is blank, you almost feel guilty if you don't say, yes, I'll do this with you, I'll do this for you, or whatever, versus, no, I just need some down alone time to stare out the window, whatever the case may be. And so I love that idea of living below our time schedule is really intentional with it. There's a purpose behind that, to have free time. I appreciate that you said that. I hope the listeners got that. And
when I first started at my company, and they had me kind of shadow other people in my department, and I remember looking this one gentleman's calendar, and it was like, client call, client call, client call, break, client call, client call, client call, lunch, client call, and then at the end, like, go home. And I was like, you actually have to tell yourself to have lunch? You actually have to tell yourself to have dinner? And now I was like, he's brilliant. Of course he does, because when I said at the beginning that I don't this is kind of a new topic for me, that I've had to learn this, because here's a little bit of an aha moment. Not everybody sees time the same way. And what I mean by that is some people internally kind of right now, if you were to just ask yourself, what time is it? Some people would internally know, oh, it's about whatever time. And they'd probably be right within 5 minutes or so, give or take. My husband is one of those people. He's the on-time person. And others of us, me, are go, 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 crash. Get up the next morning, go, 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 go. I don't have an internal clock that tells me about time. I have to get it from outside sources. So if my calendar actually tells me, oh, it's time to go to lunch. Oh, I should go to lunch now. Or, oh, I get up, bing. Oh, it's time to go home. Okay, I go to home now. Because otherwise, I would just keep working and working and working. My husband used to call me at the office going, honey, it's 6:30. Where are you? I'm like, oh, I was just getting stuff done, because I just go, 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 and I keep working. I used to always joke that of in our office, when we would all be in the cubicles and stuff like that, all of us that don't have the sense of time, it was at 5 o'clock, about 5:05, we were like meerkats. We all would pop up out of our cubicles and look around, everybody went home. Where are they? We can hear the lights, the zzz of the fluorescent lighting, wait a minute. And that was what we needed. It was until the room got really quiet and we could hear the fluorescent lighting that was externally our sense of, oh, something changed in the room. And then the process of, oh, it's time to go home now. Not everybody internalizes time. And so if you're that type of person, if that's resonating with you, then the trick is, okay, then I need beeps and buzzers and breaks and things in my schedule to tell me, here's where the margin is. Here's where it's time to go home. Here's where to go eat dinner with your family. Here's, and putting those things into your schedule.
It's almost like you need to schedule time to do nothing, to have that rest, to have that downtime. Yeah, that's something that, I've never thought schedule. Put a reminder in your phone to eat or to go home or whatever. And it sounds so simple and why would you need to do that? But I'm very similar to you, where I just go, 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 go. And so that's something that I know I definitely am going to think about starting. Yeah, that's really good. What should someone consider before they say yes to something?
Well, anytime you're saying yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So I used example before. If I'm saying yes to scouts, violin, club soccer, whatever, then I'm saying no to, if it's, date night, family time, movie night with the family, whatever that might be. But there's always a cost, yes, and no. And so just, looking at, okay, again, does this align with our family values? Have we ever talked about that before? You guys are big in the subject of family planning, and most people only talk about family planning when it's should we have a child, not what do we actually want for our family? What do we want our family to be known for? If people were talking about the DeArmas family, what would they know the DeArmas family for? Oh, they're such a great family. Oh, are they really sporty, or they're really giving, or they're really focused on volunteerism? so, what do you want your family to be known for? And then again, does adding this thing onto our schedule align with that?
Okay.
Good. Yeah, this is all so good. And this, I think, it just all makes sense. It all clicks. It's stuff that I think, especially in Southern California, we're just not great at.
Yeah.
And I love what you shared about like putting a reminder on your phone or putting it in your physical calendar. Do you have any other practical steps to help with time management?
Yeah, you said the word season before. So I think that's a huge one, is just reminding yourself about the season that you're in, good or bad. But a lot of times we're, I know as a mom, like focused on, oh, the season of potty training is so hard, or this season of, they're moving from crib to bed is so hard, or this, and just, kind of reminding, like, it's not going to be like this forever. Your child will learn how to, use the potty, and you will be getting past that, right? And so I think, there's not a perfect calendar, not a perfect schedule. And even if you've got it, give it a couple months and it's going to, fly out the window. So I actually, like the blank calendar template that I showed, is I will do this about every 3 or 4 months. And I'll kind of sit down and, okay, how is this working? What in this is working? What in this is not working? What do I want to add in? What do I need to take out? Those types of things. So yeah, I would say, that calendar template has been huge for me. And I kind of just always try to keep a running list of, again, those things that I'd like to get to. And, if it's not this season, okay, let me keep that on the to-do list for the future. Okay, maybe this is the year that it comes in, or this is the quarter that it comes in. And so that would probably be one thing. For me, let me think, what else did I have here that I wanted to share? Not to take, I kind of think of it, one of the cool things I got is this Christian planner. And one of the questions that it asks a bit as you're scheduling your time is, what are you going to do this week for God, for yourself, and for others? And I think that's really kind of a cool way to think about, like, okay, am I spending time in the Word? Am I spending time in prayer? Am I spending time for myself, on myself, so I can refuel and be better for other people? So whether that's just time to think, or whether that's, go and get the massage, or whether that's refueling with girlfriends or, other people. And for others, am I serving? Am I mentoring others or discipling other people? Am I giving back to my community? So I think, those would be some of the things also is, again, putting those things, where on my schedule do I have things for God, things for myself, things for others, and how am I viewing, so that it's not all about me. It's not all about, consuming just for consuming's sake.
And those practical steps, that's also, I think that would also answer the question, what should someone consider before saying yes to something, right? I mean, it kind of goes both ways. Looking at how are we spending our time? Is it honoring God with this?
Again, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Tammy.
No, God first. And I liked how you said God, and then for myself, and then others. Sometimes we have God and others and others and others, and then
Exactly.
Ourself is down at the bottom. And it's just like that whole thing, like on the airplane, you need the oxygen before you can help somebody else. So how are you even gonna be intentional with your time if you're totally depleted?
Yeah, exactly. And again, going back to that idea of seasons is, you know, I know you have a lot of young listeners, and I can remember, you know, the conversations with all the other young mommies when it was just, does anyone actually have a 30-minute quiet time anymore? Like, is that a thing? And I mean, we would just like encourage each other, like, if I can read one verse today, like, oh my goodness, you know, like I just needed the one verse, you know. So sometimes that's the season, is like, you know, okay, I'm nursing my child and there's my prayer time. There's my quiet time. There's my, you know, like, am I listening to something that's going to encourage me? Have I got, you know, a podcast that, okay, that is the quiet time that I have at this season of my life. A couple of, about last year, it was a season of driving and having to drive other people. And there was this part of me that was like, oh, a bunch of my time just got taken away. And so I had to just change my attitude of like, okay, what's the opportunity in this season? Is this just derailing my schedule, which was very focused on me and, you know, very, you know, focused on the selfish aspect? Or, okay, Lord, is there something in here that you can do? And so I purposed myself with putting on a certain song that I knew would like uplift me. And so as I drove home every day, I would, you know, listen to that song and just look for the opportunity of like, okay, you know, this is my opportunity to refuel. It's in the car. It's not, you know, where maybe I would like it to be, but the, you know, I still have that chance of, okay, here's my 15-minute drive time. How can I turn this into the quiet time for today?
I love that, because that is all about being intentional with our time, as far as what's the opportunity here versus, and changing the mindset. You know, I have to do this, I have to do that, but I'm changing it to, I think the music thing is awesome, because that does change our hearts in the midst of whatever we're going through. And I appreciate the seasons, and I hope the listeners can just sit back and think about that. Whatever you're going through, where you're thinking, oh my gosh, be intentional with my time. Are you kidding me? You ladies don't even know what I've got going on. I got this, and this. To know that that season is not forever. You know, the breastfeeding stops, the diaper changing stops, the school age stops, and there will be new seasons and new things that you'll be going through. And I think what we do become in this intentional with our time, to not get too multitasky. You know, I think we're great at that. Well, I can do this and I can do that, so much that we can run ourselves crazy. I know sometimes I come in here to my office and I'm clicking my key fob, like to open my office door. You know, you're in such a, I'm like, no, the key fob to the car is not going to open the office door, but you got so much going on in your mind, you know, to then just take that square block back of free time to free time. Yes.
Tammy, you know, you guys in the intro to your podcast talk about, you know, some of us are older and some of us are younger. And, you know, to hear that, again, that season, I think, you know, on the flip side of the, you know, when we were young mommies and had no time to ourselves, is what's the value to your seasoned sisters of this podcast who
Right.
have something to share, or maybe are the resource or the mentor. And the mentoring might be bringing one meal to a struggling mom, or a mom with a newborn, or as I just heard a girlfriend the other day just talk about, you know, this Zoom thing, remote learning at home is really hard. And so maybe you're not in that season, but you could be the encourager to somebody who is. And so, you know, I looked the other day, one of my clients attended the prayer walk in Washington, and she's 75 years old. And I'm like, she's in a different season, you know, to be able to be there and doing something she felt, you know, her heart called to do. And wow, 75 years old, and she's got a purpose and a calling of how she's spending her time and what she wants to do with it. And she's, you know, getting ready to go into retirement, and it's a giving back season, you know, so it's encouraging the body of Christ through prayer season. And
Sure.
that's a pretty cool season to get to.
Yeah. And to look and see those people in your lives. I mean, thinking when my kids were younger, there were those mamas pouring in to me. I used to think every time I sat down to do my Bible study, I'd pick up my Bible, sit down, and one of them would ask me, Mom, I'm like, I would even test it if I touch my Bible. Am I going to hear, Mom? It's like they were connected to that Bible somehow. All right. What's a final thing that you would leave the listeners with about time management?
You know, I mentioned journaling earlier, and maybe you've never journaled on this topic, but you know, you might just ask yourself kind of like, when I'm on time, ... and see what you come up with. And this played out for me. This was a couple years ago. Again, I'm the late one. My husband's the on time one. But there was a week that we were early to church, not just on time, but we were early to church. And for somebody like myself, I'm always like, I could have gotten like 20 more things done at home. Like, why would we be early to something? I don't understand being early to the movies. And he's like, I just like to get there early and relax. I'm like, but then we have to just sit there and like, look at the screen. What are we doing here? And so, but there was a week we were early to church. And guess what happened? I love people. I love talking to people. And because we were early, I got to talk to all these people as they were coming into church and coming by us and things like that. And I got filled on a totally different level because I'm normally always just getting there right when things start, or getting in there 5 minutes after things start. And so I realized, when I'm on time or when I'm even early to things, there's a reward for me in a different kind of way. Like, I deepen relationships when I'm early to things. That was a big aha moment for me. So maybe it's different for you, but maybe like if you're not normally an earlier on time person, maybe try it and see if there's some benefit that you had no clue was going to be a benefit for being early to something. And maybe journal about that. Or again, kind of that like ramping into the freeway feeling of like, when I'm late for things, how does that feel? My, fists are clenched, my arms are clenched, my stomach is clenched, my whatever it feels like for you. I'm yelling at my kids, or, whatever. Like, so maybe exercising that out a little bit, journaling that out on like, what does it feel like? What happens when you're early or when you're late to things? And then how can you go about changing that?
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's really good. There's so much to learn in this, and it's always tweaking. It's always changing because of our seasons, because of our responsibilities. And when you said that BSF, thought that is a yearly thing for me to think, this year. So far, not yet, but it's coming. I know.
We'll come together.
What is a recent challenge that you've overcome or possibly still overcoming? We love to ask our guests this because we want our listeners to hear and see that everybody's overcoming things always.
Well, so I'm in a different season and now I have a teenager. And so in regards to time management, my teenager used to go to bed early and get up early. And now he likes to go to bed late and sleep in late. And so my perfect plan that I had planned for, like, okay, here's our school year, this is the fall semester and here's how we're going to do it. And like literally day one, it like went off the rails. It wasn't even close. But so the challenge, and fortunately I had people like Jeremy and Jerusha Clark that had, I'd read their books on, your teenager's not crazy and things like that, that I realized, okay, he is changing and the body clock changing for him is a real thing. And so as a mom, here's what the like awesome challenge is. He wants to have deep conversations at like 10:30 at night. And that doesn't really go well for the mom who's like, okay, let's get up and do our quiet time early in the morning when the house is quiet. So I'm just, in this phase of like having to weigh what's more important, like being in this moment with my son. And I can't do it every night, but giving my time late in the evening when he's ready to open up versus, nope, I got to stay on the schedule. Nope, it's time to go to bed. Nope, I could shut that down really easily and miss out on some really deep conversation. And then there's times that I need to, you know, say to him like, okay, can we pick this back up in the morning? I really have to get to bed. I really have an early morning to get started tomorrow. And so just weighing that, you know, that's the season right now that I'm in, and weighing out late night conversations and my perfect schedule that should be starting early.
Yeah. Laying down that idol of the perfect schedule, you know, because everybody has them, and you're right. Thankfully, you see that, and you know that time with him is so much more precious than any perfect schedule. And as soon as you get used to that, then he'll say, you know, Mom, I think I'm going to get up early in the morning. That's for sure. They keep changing. Okay. And how are our listeners, if they want to get in contact with you, will they just contact Hannah here at Alternatives? We can do that. So if anyone has any more questions for Melissa, just reach out to Hannah here at Alternatives. Hannah, you want to give your email?
Yep, it's development, DEVELOPMENT at amc-ca.com. And I would love to hear from you and send you on to Melissa.
That would be great. That would be great. Melissa, thank you so much for this that you gave. I wrote down a bunch of things just to sit back and think about, just how I can change some things in my own time management schedule. And one of the things I think we all try to do here at Alternatives is be intentional with our time. Many of us are wives, moms, girlfriends, whatever. So this is one part of what we do. So there's different schedules jockeying for our attention, but just being intentional each step of the way. And I know the listeners are too. So that's it's a great subject to reach out. And that I love that you said not everyone sees time the same way. Wow, where were you 35 years ago when I married my husband? No, because they're opposite. I'm much more like your husband. He's much more like you that way. I'm like, can we get to church and just stare at the when nobody's there? Why? You got to prepare your heart. Don't you have to prepare your heart? Why? Get it?
It's a big aha, isn't it, when you realize that?
Oh yeah.
There's a gift on both ends. So
right.
There's a gift.
Absolutely. All right.
Time and a giftedness in those of us that don't. So.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. I know we had done a survey on Instagram a little while ago asking what do you want to hear about? What do you want to know? And this is something that we had a good amount of people respond back with. And I know this is something that I think is very helpful, specifically geographically in Southern California. I know we just move so fast paced and sometimes it can be very overwhelming. So for those of you that put that answer in, I hope that you really got a lot out of this episode and you found just some freedom in this. Because I know sometimes when we feel like we're bound to our schedule, we can just feel like a pressure there. So I hope that this is really freeing for you. If you want to connect with us on social media, we are on Instagram at AlternativesNC. And then on Facebook, we are at Alternatives Medical Clinic. Talk to you soon.